Kia ora everyone, welcome to this workshop on sustainable youth ministry. I'm James Bryant, I'm from the Catholic Diocese of Christchurch. I'm the manager for the Catholic youth team here, and it's wonderful to be talking to people from all around the world on this topic that's really important to my heart. I'm really passionate about it because the wonderful blessing in my life was that years ago someone created a ministry in my parish that changed my life. It reached out to me as a young man, brought me into a relationship with Christ, journeyed alongside of me, dealt with all my tough questions and curly questions, and then equipped me to go out on mission myself. It really was a blessing. One of the things I really have struggled with is that we see these really blessed ministries take off in our communities, and then for some reason, years down the track, maybe only a few years down the track sometimes, they tend to crash and burn and disappear. And sometimes that's because someone from within the community moves on and takes the vision with them, or maybe it's a group of young people who have been enthusiastic about the ministry move through, a group of parents, or who knows, there's all sorts of reasons for these things happening. A wonderful parish priest maybe who's been driving things. We don't want that to happen, do we? No, we want what I've experienced in other communities, which has been a sustained youth ministry that's lasted beyond, one or two priests, and has lasted 20 or 30 years. It's got a wonderful community culture behind it and keeps it going. So I'm sure you want to know more about that. I'm still exploring and growing to know more what creates a sustainable youth ministry. I've learned lots, even recently, through this book called Sustainable Youth Ministry by Mark DeVries, and also just looking at other materials like the Rebuilt stuff, Divine Renovation, Informing Intentional Discipleship, and 2 years in ministry, and also things that have been around for years, like our our framework for Catholic youth ministry for New Zealand, Tū Kahikatea. So youth ministry, as I say, is really complex. It's very complex, but we need to start somewhere, right? And so we're just going to give you a little short taster. Don't be freaked out if there's lots you need to explore further. We're here for you, and we can also point you to great resources that can support you as well. So two key factors, I think, big things that are really key to sustainable youth ministry. One of those is the structural elements, and one of those is the cultural or the environmental stuff that goes alongside of it. We're going to look very briefly into three key areas that those two factors overlap. So one of those is people, and then systems, and that includes documentation, and then resources. So let's get in straight away. So people, like Jesus is at the center of it, at the heart of it all, isn't he? And without Jesus, we don't have ministry. Without the people, we don't have ministry. So we're just going to stop right now and say, Jesus, we just ask you to come into this time, bless over us, bless over this talk, and bless over the wonderful people that are involved in ministry that are listening to this talk right now, and give them all the grace and blessings they need for their ministry. So Jesus is at the heart of it all. The other people that are really key are our priests and leadership teams. Research shows us that wherever the priest or the leaders, the key pastoral leaders, or the priest and the key pastoral leaders are really behind the youth ministry and supporting it and driving it, that's where youth ministry will flourish. And so it's really key that we have you on board, fathers, if you're listening, and if you're not, I hope someone shares this video with you. The other key groups, I've always recommended that our communities have some sort of a youth council or a reference group in place. So these could be made up of all sorts of adults or young adults from within your community. So it might be teachers, it might be accountants, it might be people who are good fundraisers, who have got good community contacts within your community. And also that they have a heart and passion for youth ministry. It could be that they are young parents whose kids haven't yet quite come into the youth group, and they want to see a future youth group around when their kids start youth group. It could be that they've got kids smack bang in the middle of the youth group and they want to keep it going. It could be that they're out the other side, or maybe that they have no connection, but they're just passionate and excited about seeing young people involved in their communities. And Also, one of the other things I'd say that all our communities need is some sort of coordinator of the youth ministry. Now, this could be a volunteer. Ideally, it would be someone employed, because this is a huge task. We're asking coordinators to pull together all the bits and pieces, to work with all these different groups of people, and to help us make a successful youth ministry, to bring into fruition the vision and the values that we want incorporated in our ministry. And there's so much. We once pulled together a description for a youth coordinator at one of our national meetings in Australia, and man, did we come up with quite the list. So it's really important that youth coordinator is supported by that youth council, by our priests and by the volunteers and stuff that we're going to talk about in a minute, but also that we get good, well-trained and equipped people in that position. We also need volunteers. No youth coordinator should or could be doing it on their own. And if we rely on them when they move on, you can guarantee that you'll have a big drop off in the youth ministry. No matter how good the person that's following along, if we don't have volunteers who are trained and are part of the ministry, we will struggle. So they could be parents, once again, or young adults trained up to help run the programs, to run small groups, to do the activities, all those sorts of upfront things that we want them doing the peer-to-peer ministry stuff with the young people. And of course, it makes sense. We need also young people and families and the wider community as well. We want to tap into all these groups, because the vision for youth ministry needs to go beyond just ourselves and our coordinator and our priests. It needs to be that the whole community owns and is excited about ministry with young people. Okay, so let's move on really quickly to systems and documentation. You've got your people in place. They're going to help you, hopefully, put together a vision and mission, if you haven't already got one, to put in place the values and the goals that you want to go for as well. So let's look at those really quickly. If you haven't yet, I'm not going to cover this a lot, because Father Alistair has a video on vision and mission, and I really recommend you check it out rather than me go over everything. But basically the vision is, where do we want to be? What do we want our ministry with young people to look like? And when are we going to get there? And how are we going to get there? The mission is, how are we going to get there? So the vision is, what will it look like? The mission is, how do we get there? And the values are those things that really matter to us, that underscore everything we do and why we do it. Goals are really important as well, because those are the little steps of our mission along the way, so that we know that we're achieving the things and we're getting towards that vision is. And it might be around things like, Mark De Vries goes into it really nicely. He says, we hate talking about numbers or bums on seats in Catholic Church, or in any church, in Christian churches, because we think it sort of devalues the good work we do with young people, no matter how many turn up. But hey, how many young people are in your community that you could connect with? How many of them are already Christians? How many of them are already Catholics? And you're just not reaching them with your program, they're not connecting up. So just think about, what can those goals be that we set for ourselves to show that we're achieving that mission? Planning is really important, and it ties back into that. So planning, and so out of planning will come things like a curriculum. What sort of things do we want to do in our youth programs? It might be that we have a set ministry, like Life Team, that we draw on their resources, and they help us plan out each term, each semester, each year, what we're going to do, and we lay that out. Or it might be that we base our program around the readings for the term and the seasons of the year in the church and the feasts, and so we're going to each week look ahead to see what each week's readings are going to be like and what things we might do around them, and plan our program around that. It might be that we have a particular curriculum based around things like the sacraments and values that we want in our young people, the things that we see in our community that concern us, that we want to be able to address with our young people, and we create a curriculum around that we explore over a number of years. They're all great things that we can include, but it's really important that we have a curriculum in place that says, over the next year, and I really do recommend you do a year's worth of curriculum planning, what are we going to do and how are we going to do it, and who's going to be responsible for talks or whatever it is that as you look ahead. A liturgical plan is really important as well, because youth ministry in case I haven't already said it, is much more than just a youth program. It's so much more. And if you want to explore, how much more, have a look at this framework for youth ministry. It looks at, how do we engage our young people in the life of the community overall? Are they involved in social justice? Are they involved in, yes, youth groups and events and programs and things like that, but in the life of the church, in the liturgy, in the sacraments, all those sorts of things. So looking inwardly, look outwardly, how are young people involved in our ministry? Is it comprehensive? And so the liturgical plan allows for building in some of that comprehensive thing. How are young people being involved in the liturgical plan? When we're doing our liturgical planning, are we engaging young people in it? And are we speaking to them through things like the pre-sermons and the things that go into our newsletters and all that sort of stuff? Calendar of events, really important. Once again, looking ahead a year at a time so that we don't create clashes between what goes on in the rest of the community, either at our parish level or diocesan level, and what goes on in our youth ministry. There's always going to be clashes of some kind, but as much as we can, especially around major events like camps and retreats and those sorts of things. And what do we want to put in, and what's reasonable to put in, considering what we're asking of our youth ministry coordinator. We don't want to overwhelm them. We don't want to overwhelm our volunteers. So let's plan this out really carefully with a calendar of events. So that planning again, curriculum, liturgical plan, calendar of events, okay? And remembering that comprehensive approach where we look beyond just youth group to see how are our young people engaged in the life of the community. Okay, so I've also done a video for this conference on policy and procedure, and there's one by Sam and Clodagh on safeguarding, and also I've done one on health and safety. So it's really important that we consider how all these things create structure that means that everyone within our ministry, our volunteers and our workers and teams, know what they're doing as far as everyday stuff. What's the right way to go about things like, what's an appropriate movie to show on a movie night if we're going to have movie nights? How do we keep people safe when they're doing different activities and things like that? So it's really important that we have the correct documentation and training and things like that in place as far as all that goes, health and safety, safeguarding, and policies and procedures. The other big thing is budget and investment. So we can't have any of this without some sort of investment, right? And so how are we connecting up with our people that are on our committees, our finance committees that look at budgets, and how have we talked to them, and how's our priests talk to them about what sort of investment we want to make in our young people? And once again, that can tie back into our people as far as creating proper employment documents and role descriptions. What's the cost going to be around? We've got all sorts of templates that we can use to help you guys consider all these things. We've got some templates for employment documents, for role descriptions, and even looking at what might it cost me to employ a youth worker, especially if I want one that's going to do the job well, who might have a bit of maturity about them, might have a bit of experience about them. Other things to look at is, do we have a code of ethics and behavioural standards for our youth ministry? So this is all documentation stuff still. What training and formation processes are we going to do for our youth workers and volunteers, and even our staff as well? So how are we going to continue to help that person that we've employed continue to develop their skills and understanding around working with young people and creating safe and healthy spaces for our young people. We all should always continue to learn, and I know I've learned so much even this year, and I'll continue to learn every day. And so how do we ensure that there's a process that encourages that ongoing learning within our community of youth workers and volunteers? Finally, one of the things that we often sort of don't think about are databases. So, our databases allow us to invite people to do different roles within our community. They allow us to invite people to register for events and programs, and it also means once they do register that we've got their emergency contact details, special needs. So there's all sorts of things that those databases are really vital for, keeping in touch with both volunteers and the young people and their families. Families really key to youth ministry, and that's a whole nother big topic. But yeah, how do we keep in touch with them? And one of the key ways is keeping up-to-date databases and making sure always that we let them know what we're doing, what's coming up, and what sort of topics might be coming out of the things that we're exploring, giving them the opportunity to enter into that with their children. All right, resources. This is the other one, right? So physical needs, and we talked a bit about budget earlier. So this ties back into that planning and budgeting again. What sort of resources are we going to need? These can be as big as the venue, the space for young people should make them feel at home, and how can they store their resources? Where can they meet to explore the gospel together? Where is their mission base? I guess you could look at it, because we want them to become missionaries and go out and do it. How do they come together and plan, and all the furnishings and things that make that their home base? We also need resources around for activities and sports, and if you're going to have activities and sports, you're going to need first aid equipment, right? So all these things we need to think about that are making them accessible and easy to use for our youth worker and our volunteers and our young people themselves. Prayer resources, things for creating environment and beauty that draws them into worship. Creative supplies for creating beautiful things that can create those spaces and explore the faith in a different way. And tech equipment, sound equipment, musical instruments maybe. All those things are things that create that sense of investment in our young people and create something that becomes sustainable ministry within our communities. Fantastic. So those are the key points I wanted to cover. Before we go, however, I just want to be really clear that the responsibility for supporting these systems should and must go beyond the parish. Our diocesan agencies, our youth office, our pastoral officers must be there to support you, and so please ask for our support. Ask for us to come and help with consultation, templates, resource ideas and support, training, information, all those sorts of things that we can offer. We're here for you. And I know that's definitely here in our diocese. Hopefully there's lots of other wonderful organisations in wherever you come from that can support you with this stuff. But even if there's not, have a look at some of the templates and things that we have online as well. There's also lots of other online resources, so things like Life Team that I spoke about earlier. They have not just wonderful resources and curriculum ideas online, but they also have training for youth ministry people and how to set up core teams and what the structure stuff might look like as well for a successful Life Team program and youth ministry program in your community. So, and I'm sure there's lots of other similar programs out there, just Life Team's the main one that I know about. There's also Franciscan at Home, which is an online training program for youth ministers and parish pastoral workers and things like that. Hopefully your parish might already have or is considering getting a subscription to their training service, and it's really wonderful because you can get mentors and things like that that can journey with you and help you in your ministry as well. So that'd be really cool, really exciting if you can get those up and running. Of course, there's lots of other wonderful online training resources and things that you can find on YouTube and other places like that. Books, lots of books, so many books. This is one that I've drawn heavily on with my sustainable youth ministry stuff recently and my support for parishes. It is called Sustainable Youth Ministry, and it's by a guy called Mark DeVries. I was honestly thinking about writing a book, and then I read this book and was like, this guy says it way better than I do, and he's been thinking about it for longer than I do. It's a wonderful big look at what we've been talking about today, much more sort of broad and a lot of great tips and specific examples and all that sort of stuff, so well worth checking out. And remember the rebuilt stuff, divine renovation, forming intentional disciples, the National Youth Ministry resources like Tu Kahikatea, all those things are really critical in considering the best way to create a sustainable youth ministry program in your area. So, thanks once again. Thanks, Jesus, for putting me in this place where I've got the wonderful opportunity to share with these wonderful young people. And Lord, we just ask you to bless over each of our ministries and everything we do now in the future. And you guys, remember, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. We're here to jog alongside of you and support you. So looking forward to the journey. Thanks you, and God bless.